So there was this one game called Tetris Effect that was released a few years back that you played with a VR gimmick, virtual reality for those not in the know, and it was exclusive to PS4 and later come out to Windows and whatever VR things you had on there. And then there was a new version called Tetris Effect Connected that was released for the Xbox consoles, and we eventually got this Nintendo Switch version, which is what I'm playing today. Tetris Effect was the brainchild of Tetsuya Mizuguchi, who developed a bunch of games like Lumines and Rez. The latter I know of only because it came with something called a trance vibrator or something. That I only know of because it was featured on one of the old Screw Attack videos. Anyone remember Screw Attack? That was a great website back in the day, before it all went to shit, but I digress. Anyway, this guy did a Tetris game that used lights, sounds, and other sensory stuff to enhance the Tetris experience, which I'd imagine works better with a VR gimmick glued to your face than it would have as a regular plain Jane thing you played on your TV or in handheld form. Maybe this needed a trance vibrator gimmick or something. This is usually the part where I pause for a bit and go, nobody is going to get that, but quite honestly, somebody heard the word vibrator in there and they're already having dirty thoughts. If you didn't before, you certainly do now. Let me tell you something, that's on you, kid, but moving right along. So it's Tetris, right? You're familiar with the game, I'd imagine. Things fall from the sky, you place them in a way to form lines that clear away. It's the usual Tetris fare where speed ramps up as you clear lines. In terms of the base Tetris gameplay, it's on par with any other modern Tetris that I've played up to this point, which is fairly consistently done. Controls are pretty spot on, gameplay's fairly solid. Suffice it to say that if you've played any incarnation of Tetris in the past 20 to 30 years, you're not going to have any issues jumping into this one, so I don't really need to dive too deep into this part. And yes, it's modern Tetris stuff. You have your ghost pieces, your infinite spins, and stuff like that. Maybe there's options to turn these off, I don't know. I didn't care enough to look, quite frankly. If I wanted to play classic Tetris, I'll go and play classic Tetris, because classic Tetris does a better job of playing classic Tetris than modern Tetris with a few options turned off, and even then, there's many different flavors of classic Tetris to choose from. Is it the Nintendo one, the Tengen one, OG Tetris with only hard drops and one rotate button? Tetris 2, Tetris Attack? Whatever, man. Let me enjoy the acid trip of Tetris Effect, and wait, wasn't there an acid Tetris? Holy fuck, there is, isn't there? Jesus Christ. Anyway, so where was I? Oh yeah, so it's modern Tetris and plays like any other modern Tetris thing since modern Tetris became a thing. If you get it, great. If you don't worry about it. It's not a big deal, even though some people might think that it is. The only new thing, at least to me, because I haven't kept up with the new Tetris other than the multiplayer one on Switch, is the zone meter, which you fill by clearing lines and such, and at any time you could tap a button to get into the zone, during which time everything slows to a crawl. This is where you form as many lines as possible before the meter runs out, at which point said lines will be cleared from the board, and you'll achieve some sort of big word tris depending on how many lines you've been able to clear, with the caveat that it doesn't count towards your line count. Obviously, the more zone in your meter, the more time you have to produce these impressive looking spectacles or just get yourself out of a bind, though note that the lines don't actually clear away until the effect wears off, because otherwise that would kill the visual. There's a variety of modes in Tetris Effect Connected, the main one being Journey, which is where you play through several rounds of Tetris while being treated to many different visuals and audio styles along the way, and as you clear these you'll unlock such themes in the options to play in the Elements mode, which in turn sports a number of game modes that you could try out, some traditional stuff like the Marathon and Ultra game modes, relaxed variations of such modes where you play Tetris without consequence, and focused game modes which apply more specific conditions for success. All of these, it's just variations on a core playstyle, and know that there's something for everyone out there, anyone out there somewhere. There's also some online stuff, lots of online stuff that I haven't tried, but I'm sure it's fun if you're into that sort of thing, which I'm not, so whatever. The graphical aspect of Tetris Effect is a difficult aspect to discuss because the game adopts a wide variety of moving backdrops, visual effects and styles, and other bits and bobs. These are always constantly changing, especially in between levels during journey mode. Same deal with the audio aspect, which is also difficult to explain because it's a wide variety of audio and musical tracks to go along with the multitude of themes in Tetris Effect, almost too many to count. Actually, one aspect of the audio is its dynamic nature. Beats play with every action and the music shifts as you're progressing, and it's a neat little thing, but look, I mean, it looks pretty at times. The particle effect is fully mastered here. I like the different sounds for the moving pieces and settling into place, dynamic stuff. Music's kind of global and there, but after a while, I'm just focused on the game and don't even pay attention to all the extraneous stuff. This is why I feel Tetris Effect is better off as a VR experience, because maybe that way it plays off your senses and emotions, especially when you start clearing lines and everything lights up and flares and stuff. Once you're in that zone, everything is heightened. And maybe that's the case for other people. It might be even the case for some of you if you play this, but I don't know. I never got that feeling because I was too focused on the gameplay and less so on the light show. And there'd be times where I just want to turn off the light show because it became such a distraction, which isn't what this game is supposed to evoke. But emotions are a funny thing. Not everyone is going to feel the same way about certain things, and I can only go by my own experience and nobody else's. Oh, and you move blocks with the D-pad, as the sticks are reserved for zooming and shifting camera angles in order to try and recreate that VR experience, which doesn't work. And quite frankly, first thing I noticed on the first playthrough is why the playfield so fucking small, and I had to zoom in on that. And yeah, other than that, well, overall Tetris Effect Connected is, well, it's Tetris. It has a unique visual and audio presentation that again probably works better as a VR experience, but at the very least, the core gameplay is still solid and it's Tetris. If you like Tetris, you'll probably like this, but if the presentation doesn't quite work for you and you still want your Tetris fix, Tetris 99 and Puyo Puyo Tetris are probably good Switch alternatives. Either way, it's Tetris. Take it or leave it. That's all I really got to say.